Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Iran's Navy receives smart long-range missiles. Netanyahu vows to fight on despite mounting Gaza death toll. U.S. accuses Iran of attacking tanker in Indian Ocean. 14 Israeli troops killed in fierce fighting as Gaza death toll surpasses 20,400. Macron talks with Jerusalem Patriarch and expresses great concern about Gaza Catholic parish. Iran's Navy receives smart long-range missiles. Deutsche Welle. Sophisticated domestically made cruise missiles have been delivered to Iran's Navy, state media reported on Sunday. This comes amid growing regional tension between Tehran and Iran-backed militant groups on one side, and Israel and its Western allies over the Israel-Hamas conflict. The Talea cruise missile has a range of over 1,000 kilometers, 621 miles, and is said to be capable of changing targets mid-mission. Other deliveries to the Navy included reconnaissance helicopters, drones, and marine cruise missiles. Iran says it has a stock of various kinds of missiles with ranges up to 2,000 kilometers, 1,250 miles, capable of reaching Israel and U.S. bases in the region. However, these claims cannot be independently verified. Netanyahu vows to fight on despite mounting Gaza death toll. Financial Times. Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has vowed to continue fighting in the war against Hamas, despite growing international calls for a ceasefire. The Israeli military has expanded its ground operations, resulting in the deaths of 14 Israeli soldiers over the weekend. The death toll among Israeli forces has risen to 153 since the launch of the ground offensive in late October. More than 20,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the start of hostilities. International aid groups have warned of a humanitarian catastrophe in the region, with food and medical care difficult to access and the chances of disease growing. The U.S. accuses Iran of attacking tanker in Indian Ocean. Financial Times. A chemical tanker in the Indian Ocean has been attacked by a drone launched from Iran, according to the U.S. military. The Pentagon said the Chempluto was hit on Saturday by a one-way attack drone fired from Iran. It was the seventh assault by Iranian forces on commercial shipping since 2021, the statement said. There were no casualties and a fire on board the tanker has been extinguished. This marks the first direct attack on a civilian vessel by Iran since Israel's war with Hamas began in October. 14 Israeli troops killed in fierce fighting as Gaza death toll surpasses 20,400. ABC. The death toll in Gaza continues to rise, with at least 166 Palestinians killed and 384 injured in the past 24 hours, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. This brings the total number of Palestinians killed to 20,424 since fighting began on October 7. 14 Israeli soldiers were also killed in combat over the weekend, bringing the total number of Israeli soldiers killed to 153 since the ground offensive began. These casualties are likely to play an important factor in Israeli public support for the war. Meanwhile, Israel has expanded its military offensive in Gaza, with forces fighting in complex areas where Hamas leaders are believed to be hiding. The offensive has been heavily criticized for the high civilian death toll and damage caused to Gaza. The UN Security Council has called for the speedy delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza, but not for a ceasefire. Calls for a humanitarian ceasefire have been reiterated by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees and Israel's allies in Europe, but the US remains firmly behind Israel. Macron talks with Jerusalem Patriarch and expresses great concern about Gaza Catholic parish. RFI. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for an end to the tragic situation in the Gaza Strip, which has seen hundreds of civilians living under constant threat of violence. Macron spoke with Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa, who has reported that an Israeli soldier shot dead a Christian mother and daughter on the grounds of the Gaza Strip's only Catholic church. The Israeli army denies hitting any church or causing civilian casualties. Macron offered his condolences and asked Pizzaballa to send a message of peace and solidarity to Christians in the Holy Land. With Israeli raids in the West Bank, there's no such thing as sleeping at night. New York Times. The article discusses the recent Israeli counter-terrorism operations in the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. Since the Hamas-led terrorist attack in October, Israel has conducted near-nightly raids in the camp, arresting at least 158 people and killing 67, including an 8-year-old child. The residents of the camp have fled, leaving only a few who dare to venture out onto the streets. The article highlights the destruction and violence caused by the Israeli security forces and the impact it has had on the Palestinian residents of the camp. Bethlehem, small Christmas procession held despite Gaza war. Deutsche Welle. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa, led a Christmas procession to Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. The procession was much smaller than previous years due to the lack of international pilgrims and visitors. Tourism accounts for 70% of Bethlehem's economy, and the closure of hotels and cancellation of work permits for Palestinians has left many unemployed. In addition, the war between Israel and Hamas has led to a lack of Christmas decorations in the Holy Land, leaving a feeling of darkness. The procession began at the Jaffa Gate of the Old City of Jerusalem and ended at the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is empty of joy, no Santa, no celebration. Yahoo! Christmas celebrations in Bethlehem have been cancelled and the thousands of tourists and pilgrims who would normally fill the square are nowhere to be found. A nativity scene that surrounds a newborn Jesus with big rocks and barbed wire has been installed in place of the usual festivities as a tribute to the children of Gaza. One resident of Bethlehem remarked, "We cannot celebrate with a lot of people killed in Gaza." On Christmas Eve, Bethlehem resembles a ghost town. Yahoo! Due to the war between Israel and Hamas, Christmas Eve celebrations have been called off in Bethlehem, the biblical birthplace of Jesus. 70% of Bethlehem's income comes from tourism, almost all of that during the Christmas season. With many major airlines canceling flights to Israel, few foreigners are visiting. Local officials say over 70 hotels in Bethlehem have been forced to close, leaving thousands of people unemployed. Over 20,000 Palestinians have been killed and more than 50,000 wounded during Israel's air and ground offensive against Gaza's Hamas rulers. 2 wars, 50 elections, the economy faces rising geopolitical risks. New York Times. Geopolitical tensions and upcoming elections in 2024 are adding to the instability of the global economy, which is already grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic. Elections are taking place in more than 50 countries, with 2 billion people heading to the polls. The winners of these elections will make policy decisions that will impact factory subsidies, technology transfers, trade barriers, and investments. The election of right-wing nationalists could lead to tighter control of trade, foreign investment, and immigration. This could weaken global growth and the economy, creating a vicious cycle. In many places, skepticism about globalization has been fueled by stagnant incomes, declining standards of living, and growing inequality. The biggest election is in India, currently the world's fastest-growing economy. Other significant elections include Taiwan, Mexico, Indonesia, and the U.S. The outcome of the U.S. presidential election is especially important for the world economy, as it could lead to far-reaching shifts in domestic and foreign policy. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, I bring you a collection of news stories that highlight the ongoing conflicts, tensions, and challenges faced by various countries around the world. From Iran's navy receiving sophisticated missiles, to the escalating death toll in Gaza, to the attack on a tanker in the Indian Ocean, and the impact of the conflict on Christmas celebrations in Bethlehem, there is no shortage of global events demanding our attention. Let's start with Iran, where the Navy has received smart long-range missiles. Now, I'm not sure what makes a missile smart, but apparently, these missiles have the ability to change targets mid-mission. That's impressive. But let's not forget that Iran's claims about its missile capabilities are yet to be independently verified. Moving on to Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to fight on despite mounting casualties. The death toll in Gaza continues to rise, with both Israeli soldiers and Palestinians bearing the brunt of the violence. The situation is dire, with aid groups warning of a humanitarian catastrophe and limited access to food and medical care. It's a tragic situation that demands urgent attention and resolution. And speaking of conflicts, the U.S. has accused Iran of attacking a tanker in the Indian Ocean. Apparently, this is not the first time Iran has targeted commercial shipping. Now, I'm not sure what their endgame is, but I hope they realize that attacking civilian vessels is not a good look. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, Israeli raids are causing fear and unrest among the Palestinian population. The residents of the Jenin refugee camp are living in constant fear, with Israeli forces conducting near-nightly raids and causing destruction and violence. It's a sad reality for the Palestinians, who are caught in the crossfire of this long-standing conflict. On a slightly brighter note, let's talk about Christmas in Bethlehem. Oh wait, there's not much to talk about. Due to the war between Israel and Hamas, Christmas celebrations have been cancelled, leaving the biblical birthplace of Jesus resembling a ghost town. The lack of international visitors has had a devastating impact on Bethlehem's economy, with hotels closing and thousands of people losing their jobs. It's a somber reminder of the toll that conflicts can have on innocent civilians and their livelihoods. Now, let's shift our focus to global elections and their impact on the economy. With more than 50 elections taking place in 2024, the winners will have the power to shape policies that will impact the global economy. From factory subsidies to trade barriers, these decisions will have far-reaching consequences. It's a delicate balance, and the rise of right-wing nationalists in some countries could lead to tighter control of trade and foreign investment, potentially weakening global growth. The outcome of the U.S. presidential election, in particular, could result in significant shifts in domestic and foreign policy. So, there you have it, folks. A snapshot of the world we live in, full of conflicts, tensions, and challenges. It's a reminder that we must strive for peace, understanding, and cooperation. Now, I'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these news stories? How do you think we can work towards resolving these conflicts and creating a more peaceful world? Let's discuss and find a way forward together. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.